As you know, Brian Geiger from ECR. You're the head of the bibliographic studies department?
Yep.
Okay.
And, all things California newspapers, I guess.
Great.
So thanks for inviting me. This is I'll talk most about the CDNC at the end. This is a sample of some of the papers. So the California Digital Newspaper Collection is one of the projects my center manages. And we have all California newspapers from the very first in 1846 until the most recent. So the Californian is the earliest, and then we have a project where we collect PDFs from publishers and make those available in the Pennsylvania Peninsula Beacon, is an example of one of those.
Just hit the side there.
Just anywhere. That's not what I wanted to do.
What was that early date in the
The first 1846 was the first paper published in California, the Californian out of LA. And it had an English and a Spanish language section. And the guy's name who managed the Spanish language went on to publish, I think it was the LA Star, the first Spanish language newspaper. We have both.
You might have to sit here and hit these two arrows
I
there.
can do that.
So there's that one. We'll just go back. Okay.
was the Spanish or the English? Were they exact translations, or were
No, they were
different?
different content.
Different content.
Yeah. I haven't spent that much time in the title. He edited the Spanish language section for a few years, and then I don't know what the story was, but he broke off and started his own publication.
Okay.
So we actually managed 3 newspaper projects, the CNP, the CNMA, and the CDNC. And I'll talk about all 3 of them briefly, and then spend most of the time with the CDNC. So we actually got started on California newspapers back in the 1990s through a project with the Library of Congress, the National Endowment for the Humanities, to try to identify every surviving title in California. Every state did this project. Ours was one of the longest because California is such a big state. And we still manage it. It's the cnp.ucr.edu. So if you're ever wondering if the title still exists, that's the place to go. This is an example of some of the stuff we encountered out in the field. The project lasted from the early 1990s until the about mid-2000s. I think 2005 was our last year. And on my notes, I have statistics. I think we visited about 1,400 institutions and cataloged something like 16,000 titles. Wow. And so this is an example of one of the records in the CNP. So this is the title itself, and then all the places that have copies of it. And so this is becomes really important for our newspaper, our digitization project, to try to figure out where we can find copies. So we actually did, one of the staff members did visit here, and Beaumont also. And cataloged. I don't think we knew about the stuff downstairs. So there's some hidden gems that we overlooked, but we had identified some newsprint here that we then disappeared for a while and came back. I'll talk about that in a second. So this is one of the things we can do with the CNP is create what we call family trees. So these are all the Banning and Beaumont papers. So you have the record.
You can double tap it to blow it up.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so we have the Gazette and the Record, and then in 1966 they merged to become the Record Gazette. So, a bit make it there. Then what we can do with that is identify what we call branches of the family tree. So this becomes important in the CDNC, but basically we're saying that the Record Gazette traces its history back to the Record, and the Gazette is its own separate title. These two are pretty straightforward. Let's see, I'm not sure how this is going to work. On the computer, there's graphics that float in. I'm not quite sure how that would work on this.
I'm not sure.
Let's see what happens. There we go. So anyway, this is Healdsburg. This is a more complicated title, so you can see how the family tree, we've identified individual titles on that tree. And so as the CNP was winding down in the early 2000s, a couple of things happened. The companies they were Creative Microfilm were going out of business. And so we started to purchase or acquire their archive, their microfilm. And then the National Endowment for the Humanities had a grant program where we started microfilm in both newspapers. So ultimately this became what we call the California Newspaper Microfilm Archive. It's a collection of master negative newspaper microfilm. So negative is white print on a black background, basically. The difference.
Has UCR led this project the whole time?
Yeah, so my predecessor started acquiring the microfilm, and I joined in 2007, and that's when we started. I'll show you a picture in a second. We started processing it. One of the companies was BMI up in Sunnyvale. Another was Custom actually in Riverside. And Henry just got wind that Custom was going out of business. And he went over to their offices, and they were literally throwing microfilm in the trash. So he tried to go in and grab the microfilm out of the trash, and their dog chased him away.
Oh my God.
And so we went back the next day when the owner was there and started talking to him. And so I think that archive we got for free, what was left. But unfortunately, a lot of Custom was lost. I think they had started throwing stuff away before we got there. So we just started a project in Sun City, and they have the Custom positives that were lost. The negatives were lost, but they still have the positives. So we just acquired those. So this is, fortunately, we got most negative, but there's still some titles that we don't have. So this is actually the film from BMI up in Sunnyvale coming down to our offices in Riverside. Down these truckloads. And we used to be in an old motel in Riverside, which was actually really convenient we had all this stuff in a lot of space. Now we're on campus in smaller facilities. But anyway, we kind of loaded into these motel rooms. And it came to us in these 1,000-foot rolls, as they're called. This is my predecessor, Henry. And then we would cut them up into 100-foot reels. That's what's now stored as part of the archive. And so this is our film. It's stored at UCLA, mostly, and then some up at UC Berkeley. There's a facility at UCLA called the Southern Regional Library Facility, which is kind of like a silo buried in the ground. It goes 5 stories down. And our film is stored in one of the floors. So this is me retrieving film for one of the projects. So I think in the end we ended up with about 100,000 reels, master negative microfilm. It's about 100 million pages that we could possibly do. And we probably have about 2/3 of all the titles. So there's probably somewhere north of 150 million pages of California historic newspapers that we could digitize. And this is just a record. So as we were processing it, we recorded all the reels. And so we actually, when we start a project, we know exactly what dates we have and how many reels it is and everything. That's important for pricing things out. So all of this led in about 2007 to the California Digital Newspaper Collection. This is our most active project right now. I guess I didn't. Oh, there it is. Oh, this is an old picture. So I think the CDNC right now has about 8.5 million pages in it. If I remember correctly, this is from pictures from a couple of years ago.
And you're trying to get all that microfilm onto this eventually?
We'd like to, eventually. We've done, well, I'll show you in a second. We've done about, in total, we've probably done about 23 million pages.
Out of 100 million.
Over 15 years, we've done less than a quarter.
Wow.
There's a lot left to do. Vermont would probably finish in 5 years,
Wow.
California has a lot more to do.
Wow.
So the CDNC is, I really think of it as a collection of partnerships with the state library, with Library of Congress, commercial partners, and then local institutions like Banning, who we partnered with over the years. We started the Library of Congress started a project in 2005 called the National Digital Newspaper Program. The front interface is called Chronicling America. And so we started with them. That's when we first started digitizing, and I think we've done about 500,000 pages for them. So all of that content goes into Chronicling America and the CDNC. So for that, we've done major papers like the LA Herald, I think, San Francisco Crawl. We did Gold Rush era newspapers, foreign language, things that would be of interest on a national level. And then we've also partnered with the state library. I think we've done about more than 2 million pages with the state library. And one of the projects, around 2015, we started a project to try to digitize one title per county, pre-1923 title per county. That lasted into about 2020. And I think we mostly finished. There were some counties like Yolo and Mono up north that we didn't have film for, but we largely got one title per county done. And the state library is still a major supporter of ours. And then we have local partnerships that we started in 2008. Banning and Beaumont, Riverside Public Library, a lot of colleges. So we probably partnered with over 100 institutions around the state. Some of them pay for the digitization themselves, but a lot can't. Digitizing newspapers can get really expensive quickly, and raising money to undertake a project can take a long time. So a lot of local institutions have taken advantage of our partnership with newspapers.com, which we started in 2013. Like I mentioned earlier, we've done about 28 million pages with them, I think. And so these are the terms of the agreement. The main thing from the local institutions' perspective is that newspapers.com digitizes for free to our standards, and then the local institutions get free access through newspapers.com. And so the local institution usually helps with copyright. Anything beyond 1966 is copyrighted. And so we have to get permission from the publisher, and the local institution often helps with that. So we've done a number of projects that way. And then the local institution gets free access to newspapers.com, and then after 3 years, it's available to CDNC for free to everybody. So I think it's a nice partnership for the local institution, for us, and of course newspapers.com is even. So it just adds even more content for that. So this is what the CDNC collection in newspapers.com looks like. If you would go there, I think you have free access here, right? Anywhere
We do.
within the library.
Yeah.
So this should be for what you see, I think, when you get there.
Yeah.
Although you might actually see the Beaumont Banning title specifically, I would bet.
I think we do. That's right. Yeah.
So this, if you're at UCR, they see the entire collection of 29 million pages. And then, from your perspective, you'll see the Banning titles, which we've done up through 2014. And again, this is all for free. So this was actually one of the more complicated local projects I've been involved with, largely because we didn't have ready access to content. Like we couldn't just go to UCLA and pick up the film. So we knew that we had CNMA film, our master negative from 1972 to 2003. This is from that CNP project I mentioned earlier. Make this small. And then we knew that we had positive film at the Beaumont Public Library and in the Riverside Public Library had some positive film. So as I recall, we first did Beaumont, and then I think we did Beaumont in our film, and then we went back and did the Riverside Public Library. So all of this went to newspapers.com, and this is what you see currently when I showed you that image earlier. there was no film. There was no film for any of the Beaumont titles. And we had heard back in the 90s when we were surveying, we thought we saw newsprint at the, was it the library? I think it was a Beaumont library.
They used to have something.
Yeah, and now it was no longer there, so we didn't know what had happened. And about the same time, I think I started talking to you, I started talking to Lori at the Historical Society, and they had rescued the newsprint. And so, fortunately, it survived. They had most of it there. So this project is not going to be just sending film out to newspapers like digitizing is going to be more involved in that. So 2 years ago, I think, we applied for a grant from the Haynes Foundation, and we were successful, and we're digitizing a number of, the Haynes Foundation covers all of Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties. And so we're digitizing a number of titles in, I think, exclusively San Bernardino and Riverside, in LA. But specifically, we're doing the Gazette, which I just mentioned from the Historical Society, the Herald of Banning. Although I think we ended up using LA Public, right?
Yeah, it was in better shape. Yeah.
So we're the Herald of Banning was a very rare title. There was newsprint here and at LA Public. Neither of it was in really great shape, but I think LA Public was a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
It's more complete too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's much more complete.
And then the Beaumont News, the Riverside Public Library had that at newsprint, and they recently moved into new facilities, so they wanted to get deaccession the newsprint. So we're microfilming it, and then we'll have to find a place to store that newsprint eventually. But all of this is being microfilmed to master negative, which will go into our repository at UCLA, and then we'll digitize it with newspapers.com. So eventually, hopefully by next year, we have all of Beaumont and Banning titles preserved on microfilm and digitized. That's the goal. There's been quite a few slowdowns because of COVID. The company we work with couldn't hire people, but I think we're finally back on schedule. So this, I thought you'd be interested. This is, they just started microfilming the newsprint. The company's Backstage Library Works in Pennsylvania. So we shipped all of the newsprint to them. And then they collated, they put it in order, and then they film it. So this is, I think that's Joe putting it out in the sheet and starting the process of actually.
Thank goodness for Joe.
Yeah. Joe's been doing it for a long time. I trust this company. They know what they're doing.
Critical member of this whole process, Joe, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's how you made microphone?
Yes. So
I didn't know that. I look at the little things in the.
we start with the original newsprint.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know the process that well. I've been meaning to go to their facilities and just see what it's like, but it's very similar to what you would do if you were scanning it. So I'm not quite sure why they can't scan at the same time that they microfilm. I think it's just they don't have equipment that can do that. So we have some titles that we went straight from newsprint to digital, and I would like to turn those into microfilm, but that's a more complicated process. So unfortunately, with the titles we're doing, we have to go to microfilm and then microfilm to digital. And I say unfortunately because microfilm is a high contrast medium, and so you lose a little bit of resolution, but it's a better presentation medium. So, and that's the way the companies are set up to do it.
So you need microfilm and also a digital copy so that you have like a physical media in case something happens, I guess, to the
microfilm. If microfilm is stored in a cool, dry environment, which it is at UCLA and UC Berkeley, it can last hundreds of years. Whereas digital preservation is much harder. You can do a lot of things to try to make sure that you have digital files 10 years from now, but it all comes down to people, and people aren't watching those files. There's no guarantee. So I feel much more comfortable having stuff with microfilm and digital, but having that physical medium to preserve it.
And we gave him, I think 4 years of Cabazon. Cabazon had a small newsletter or something that went
That's
through.
right.
Yeah, so we have the Cabazon Courier 57 to 59 or something like that. Went as well. And then there was another one, I think it was called the San Antonio Pass Observer or something like that. The 60s, and I think that one as well. So
To the microfilm.
yeah, so that one's cool too, because I didn't know that existed either.
I had 2 different documents. One's a Google doc and one's an Excel. I was looking at my Excel spreadsheet trying to get all the titles we had sent, but apparently I didn't record them all in that Google doc. Were those ones that were downstairs?
Yeah. The bound volumes we had are the Beaumont Gazette. We had the first 3 years. Well, there's a good reason why, because we nicknamed it the bomb shelter of the catacombs. It's actually the furnace. So below us, about 25 feet down, is a huge room that used to be the furnace. And there used to be big vents along this wall, so they would burn things and then they heat up the library. But it's where our storage is. And the last time I found a note with our bound volumes, which was about this high, that people from UCR saw, it was 21 years ago.
Oh, huh.
So 2001 was the last time you got any record gazette from the early days. So that matched your entry.
Somebody had left a note that
Yeah, seen by UCR 2001. And I know when we were corresponding, you said, I have an entry from 2001, and that was the last time. So, it's just been rotting. It was under boxes, it was covered in dust. I mean, we took air cans, just layers of dust came off these things. So we told Kevin about it, and then we've been in contact with Lori and Brian, and he was good enough to share your grant with us to get it done, because I was immediately aghast that these things were turning into dust. And you made it happen. So, but between COVID starting and we opened up again, you got through pretty quickly. So I was really happy to get it into your hands and get it secured. So.
I haven't been pushing the company very hard to finish because I figure it's there. Before I think it's going to get filmed eventually.
Yeah, that's really, really, really critical. So how do you track, do people come out and say I have a newspaper? How do you find out where newspapers go?
Mostly it's people contacting.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how some of them, one of the titles we're working on right now is the Salton Seafair, which is a newspaper out in the Salton Sea back in the 50s and 60s. Mostly 60s and early 70s.
Oh, it's a height of this popularity.
This woman published a newspaper. She lived out there and published a newspaper. I don't know how they found out about me, but they had the only surviving copy. And the daughter and her husband have been assembling it for years, trying to find missing issues, finding that was the lead run. So we're microfilming that. But what I did, in the case of this most recent project, I would just keep a list of when people contact me if they have newsprint, keep a list, and then when I thought we had something big enough to make it attractive, grant application, I went to the Haynes Foundation and said, we have 80,000 pages. I'll keep doing that, collecting titles, and get enough for another application.
Where do you see the project going?
So we're actually for the microfilm project, we collected, Henry made the purchase in about 2003 or 4. And so the same company came back to us and said if we'd be interested in purchasing more microfilm. So basically what they have is 2004 to about 2010 or so. It seems like when the Great Recession hit, people stopped microfilming. And so I'm hoping to add to the microfilm project for the next few years. Unfortunately, it's kind of a record of the death of the industry. At the same time, microfilming happened to a lot of newspapers really on hard times. And so I think it's an important record. It's kind of melancholy. But they have those last few years that microfilming will be really critical. And then the digital project, we'll definitely keep working with Ancestry. And there are, like I said, there are a few counties where there's very little record, particularly up north, and so I'm hoping we can get some titles for those. But we don't have any master negatives, so we'll be working with the local institutions to try to digitize theirs. Humboldt and Kern are two combined. They have positive film that we don't have negative for. And eventually I'd like to start working with publishers to get the current stuff, because nobody's saving that. It's not being microfilmed. Papers aren't printing much anymore, and so that's not being saved.
I mean, the publishing, like newspaper people, they don't keep their own.
Not really. No, they work with most newspapers work with what are called content management systems,
Oh,
which are designed to assemble content, but not really preserve it. So the recent stuff is not being saved. It used to be that libraries would order newspapers, and every 6 months or a year they would send them out to be microfilmed. And I don't think that happens much anymore.
You're right. Yeah. Tell you, we're not doing that. So
Yeah, well, some libraries have had good partnerships with publishers, and so they've been able to get PDFs from them. But I think that's harder to do. You know, it's, when you order a newspaper, that's pretty simple. But actually getting in touch with somebody at the newspaper to get their PDFs is much more complicated. So yeah, the history of the newspaper publishing, I would say from about 2010 on, if somebody doesn't save it, it's just going to be lost. There's going to be this huge hole in the historical record. Yeah. And you know, these days, there are other ways that people get their news, Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
But I think this newspaper is still an important resource to save. Nobody's doing it right now.
There's a new newspaper called The Rising Phoenix, being printed by the brand new Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma, and it's a weekly, and it's phenomenal. It's just so interesting, and it has stories that I don't see anywhere else in it, and it goes out to approximately 800,000 Cherokees in the United States.
Wow, that's sizable circulation.
Yeah, it's huge. And they're doing the first year for free to live here. So now I'm concerned. I need to make sure they're. What should I ask them?
Well, so you might look. Most states have projects like mine, and I'm pretty. You said it was out of Oklahoma.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Oklahoma has a newspaper project like the CDNC. I know they partnered with Texas, so you might look at the Texas newspaper project is based out of the University of North Texas. You might try contacting. I can give you the person's name there. You might try contacting her and see if they know anything about it.
Okay, so are they the copies being
Is anybody doing anything to save it? Yeah.
microfilmed or anything?
Is it all digital or is it print?
Print.
Oh, okay. Then somebody might be saving the print.
And over long, narrow, beautiful.
Huh.
20 pages.
Wow. The print is very
Yes.
hot. It's not profitable. You know, and a lot of publishers are trying to go straight to digital.
So is that the future then? Only very wealthy, like tribal governments can afford to print.
Yeah, I think print is going to
More
be
boutique.
most thing is it's going to be primarily digital with a print version. It might have a smaller circulation or come out occasionally.
So specialized.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
have you seen any Native American California-based newspapers like that?
No, I
No.
haven't. No, you mentioned
I haven't
it.
either.
I'm gonna bring copies. I have a copy for